G'day, welcome back to Build Series, episode 15. Things are moving along now, moving and shaking. What am I going to get on with today? Got to get the hatches done and finished because I couldn't get those done last episode, as you saw. Bought some new latches, which I'll try and fit to the hatch doors today and get them mounted on with the hinges, the Centerflex hinges I showed you in the last episode as well. If you haven't seen that, go back and check it out. So I've got to get that on. Bit of work to do, just odd jobs that need to be nailed before I get it out for rego. I've got to mount the front box on the drawbar, get it bolted down. Got to get some chains on the front. Got a few LED clearance lights to put around the van to make it legal. And get these hatch doors on, get the main door on, put the lid on. I've got to put the roof in, ceiling sheet that goes in the pop-top extrusion up there. Got to get that in. It's going to take a bit of work, that mainly because I specified the wrong size on the ceiling sheet, so I've got to do some adjustment to make it work because it's a little bit small, which is frustrating, but I can make it work, I've figured out, so that's good. Lots to get on with. I don't want to burn too much time on the intro, so let's jump straight in. Just knocking over the jobs that I need to do before registration whilst I'm waiting for all that stuff to dry. Went upsize on this. In hindsight, probably didn't need to, but all the rules and regs are getting pretty stiff on all this sort of stuff, and just welding your chain onto the side of the drawbar isn't really allowed in certain circumstances anymore. I didn't want to mess with those rules, so I went oversize. Probably didn't need to in the end. This is a rated shackle mount, chain mount. That's obviously rated shackle, and then rated chains. They're 13mm thick. This whole setup is rated to 3.5 tons. Obviously, I'm not going to get nowhere near that with this, so I've gone way oversized. The next one down from this was 2.5 tons, 10mm chains. Probably would have been appropriate, but at the time when I bought this, which was right back at the beginning, I wasn't sure if I was going to use my whole 2.8 ton suspension capacity as the ATM on the van. So if I did go to 2.8, then, which I'm not going to, but if I had have gone there, then I would have had undersized chains with those 2.5 ton ones. So I just went upsize. I've probably put 10 kilos into my build as a consequence by having this upsize one, but better to be bigger than smaller, I guess. That was relatively easy, missing the pin. Took my Raptor off. Dang! Anyway, I'm sure that'll cop a fair few stains moving forward and be equally as chipped by them. Hatches and latches for days. They're here now. I reckon I've got a full day ahead of me to try and get this all right. It's fairly detailed work, and got to be pretty careful because I'm cutting big holes in my doors. I want to make sure I get them right. So that's the latch there. It's basically a compression setup. You rotate, it rotates like that, back around. That latch then catches the inside of the caravan body door. It'll be like that actually. And when you've got it rotated in the right position, just drop it, and that sucks it back in and pulls it tight. Then These are Styromax. These are from Styromax. They're Tarkagen lock, but Styromax adapt them to the 30mm panel by making this aluminium plate at the back, which is good. So no one else has really got a solution that I could see. These screws come out. You just cut out the profile that you need to, push it through, and then put the plate on the back of the door and nip it up with those screws. Now I've got a few challenges because my profile is slightly different to Styromax's. Theirs is a narrower profile, so the back of this door has a wide profile on it, and that's actually where this is going to end up having to be mounted in that profile, so it's not going to be flat. So I'm yet to see how that's going to work. I can either put a bit of aluminium beside this and the whole bracket can sit across those 2 bits of aluminium that I've got there, or I'm going to have to trim this out. The screws in here only seem to be just long enough to make the 30mm, so I'm not sure adding another 1.6 or 2mm, whatever that is, to the thickness of the door is going to be possible. So I may have to just run a router in and take this out where the latch is going. We'll figure that out later. Yeah, so that's the profile of the hatch door. I've shown you that before as well. And then I've just got some of this D-rubber with 3M tape on it that goes in that centerpiece there, so when it closes it seals, and that's the Centerflex hinge. I showed you that in the last one, but I'll also show you it again later on the episode when I actually get to fit one. They're a bit long, unfortunately. I've bought ones that are too long, but I can just trim them on my table saw when I get to it. Yeah, so we'll see how this works out. I'll get this as the pantry door. I'll do it first, and hopefully I'll get a solution that works and I can just replicate it on the next 4. Fun and games. It's pretty nerve-wracking. Getting this wrong means big holes in doors, which isn't going to be great, but we'll get on with it. So I reckon that worked out all right. Got the holes, 4 holes drilled. They match the template. Looks pretty close to straight. Might be a mil out, but I'm happy with it. Get into it. Oh, she's in tight, neat, looks all right. I'm gonna have to put some tape or something on the bottom of the jigsaw table. Just marking the front of the stuff. It does come off with the wipes, which is good, but I don't want to put permanent marks on there, so I'll just put some tape on the bottom, I think. Hopefully that'll prevent the metal rubbing off. The striker only just makes it past, as I predicted, so I'm gonna have to be careful about that. I'll see how it looks when I get them on, but it'd be annoying to have to get a longer striker, but if that's what I have to do, that's what I have to do. Well, it's in. It's like trying to crack the Da Vinci Code, getting that assembled. This bracket covers the screws inside, so it's an assembly that you have to do in segments, and this has got to be loose so you can get a screwdriver and push it across and try and get into the screws that hide down in there. Yeah, anyway, got there in the end, but I've realised it's not going to work because this plate prevents the striker going down and flush with this, which is what it needs to do to pull this part of the hatch in tight. So that's currently going to sit higher. It's got to come down lower. I noticed in one of the photos on the website, the striker's got like a bit of rubber on it, on the end of it, which would help with that situation, to take up that 2mm gap there, which could be a solution, which might be a better solution than actually cutting all of this out, which is what the other option will be, cutting all of that out to drop that plate down flush with the face. Let me have a think about this and get back to you. Fair bit of deliberation going on here. I reckon I've come up with 3 options and I don't like any of them, but I think I've resolved which one I'm going to go with. So if I've got that sitting there like that in the caravan, well, it's probably going to be sitting a bit away from it because I've left a bit of a gap, but imagine that's sitting away from it. I can just put a piece of aluminium on this face, which will make it stick out a little bit behind, so when the door closes, this pulls down onto a piece of aluminium that's thicker than the face of this. I can also make it a little bit high, so that little bit of aluminium can sit up a bit higher. Once I've got them all mounted with the hinges and everything on, I can actually see how long I want that bit of aluminium, how far I want it to stick up, etc. And should be good to go. Let's get on with it. All right, onto the hinges. So I've just cut this to length, and that's the one that I trimmed down on the table saw the other day. Drilled some pilot holes for the screws, so they're already in there. So I know that from end to end is exactly in the pantry opening. So when I put it on the door, obviously I've got to put the other side on, and all I've got to do now is make sure that I've got exactly the same overhang on that end as I do on that end, and I'll know that this will end up being dead center in the opening over there. That's the plan anyway. So what I need to do is drill some holes through that piece there and chuck a few screws in. Try not to line the holes up with the holes on top because you don't want the screw heads to hit each other. And I think it's good to go. I was considering putting terracin on there, glue, but I might just see how the screws hold, because I don't want to have to take the door off at some point and then that terracin's impossible to get off, which it typically is. So we'll just go with screws for now and see how that works out. Two broken screws later, I've got them on. That one snapped off, I can't get it out. I had to move that one over. Jesus, it's turned into a bit of a SHIT show. Not sure whether I need to put one right on that corner. I'm just going to get it on, see how it looks. There it is in. Geez, I learned a lot in that one, I'll tell you. And a lot of what not to do again next time, so the next few should get a bit easier. It fits all right. It does grab on the edge, but it's only like 5mm, which I don't like. So I'm going to put that piece of alley a bit along the back of it, like I said, and also make it come down another 5 or 10mm. I've put the rubber in, which was a bad idea because, well, not a bad idea. The rubber's the wrong size, I think, is what's going on, because I cannot for the life of me get that to pull up tight against and make that flush, and it's just because the rubber's too fat. I did measure it when I bought it. I did take in 2 bits of profile and I did jam it between, and you have to squeeze it in pretty hard to get it to close. But when you put that across that whole length and the top as well, it's just too much for it, I think. Back to the drawing board. That cost an absolute bomb. It's like $10 a metre. I only had to buy like 15 metres too, so it was $150 down the tubes. I might just look online, see if I can buy a cheaper alternative. I'll have to pull that off and put that bit of alley up in here just to make that fatter and longer. And I think we'll be good to go. It wasn't the best. This is the first one I did, the first door and the first hatch opening. It's not perfectly square. There's too much of a gap here, which I really don't love. That gap there is a little bit bigger than that one there, and you can see it pretty easily. The sides are pretty straight, like that's an even gap down the side, but the top's wrong, and it's because of this, that bloody profile there, that one on the top that I put on. I couldn't get the ends to close up and something went wrong. I don't know what, but I wish I had my time over on that one, because if I could just pull that down a little bit and a little bit more in that corner than that corner, it'd be perfect. Anyway, I only have to look at it for the next decade or two. Let's get on with the rest of them. That one turned out sweet. Sweet as. Obviously I've got to put that little bit of packer in there just to bring it back to that spot. Yeah, even gap, top and bottom flush. Even springs open, because the hinge has got a bit of spring in it. Oh, it's turning out to be one of those days. Can't believe it. I'd forgotten that I'd cut this one already for the kitchen, and it was in the kitchen. I just saw it after I'd cut this one for the kitchen. You probably think that's not an issue, but it is, because this one's longer. And I now don't have a Centerflex hinge long enough to do that one. I'm burning through time, burning through dollars. This is starting to get pretty painful. I can't believe I just did that. They took a couple of weeks to turn up too, and I don't have a couple of weeks. Check it out. That wall's done. Really not happy with that one. The other two are spanking. I'm not going to be able to live with that. I am not going to be able to live with that gap being bigger that end than that end. It's going to do my head in. I figured it out. That is out of square. That perimeter, the door's perfect, but the perimeter's not, and I can't fix the perimeter. So I've actually got enough of this left and enough of this left to make a new door. And I'm going to make it out of square so that it fits in that gap. But it's definitely not until later on. Unless any of you guys have got ideas about how I could make that look better. I did consider a bit of trim that goes along there and covers that edge, but not sure. Anyway, onto the last latch on the door for the storage area, but I won't be able to put it on because I cut that hinge wrong. Just made these roughly 40 by 50 mil latch catches, so they'll go on the inside of the profile. I'll pop rivet them, and that'll give me a bit of extra width there for the latch to catch on, and also 3 mil thickness, which I need to get them up tight. So I'll just take the sharp edges off those so things that drag past them don't get caught and torn, and I reckon they'll be good to go. The lighting's not that good down the back of the shed here, but you get the gist of what I'm doing. So that's, I've put a 3 mil piece of flat bar there, 3 mil thick, 50 mil wide. It's actually the same as the bit I put along the bottom underside as well. That's just to strengthen up that perimeter of the poptop extrusion, which will allow me to, once that's obviously glued, dried, and I push it forward, I'll be able to put some chunky hinges on. So I got some, been through a few iterations of hinges now, and I've just settled on a set of stainless steel butt hinges actually, which are 2.5mm thick. They're quite heavy duty. So I'm going to run 4 of those along the back. I'd like them to be black, but I'm not sure if painting them is a great idea. I'll figure that out later. But putting that 3mm thick piece of plate on there means that the back of the hinge, where it sticks out past the profile, sits in a little groove between the top and bottom, which works perfectly. So I get a nice flat surface for these to go on, and I'm going to bolt through with a nylock nut on the rear, pull it up tight, and same through the wall all the way through with a nylock nut on the other side. On the other side of the wall I'll also put a thin piece of strap as well, like those ones, but only 1.6, just like to act like a massive washer. Hopefully that's going to be strong enough with all that arrangement in place, but time will only tell, I suppose. Just got a heap of alley profile folded, and it's 1.6mm. It's a 100mm wide piece of flat that I just got folded into the angle to suit the intersection there. So there's one on that side, there's another one that goes down at the intersection where it meets the back of the chassis, which is a 50mm piece, a bit narrower, and then I've got 2 more. One for there and another one for there, just to firm up all of those intersects. And then I also got another one for inside, which is where the poptop surround meets the internal frame. But yeah, they're ready to go. I might just give them a little coat of satin black on the back, because when folded in the machine, I expected this would happen, but it's not too bad. There is a bit of paint sort of stretching along that edge there, which I think will benefit from a little bit of a spray, and they'll be ready to glue on. It's the following weekend now. I've been lucky enough to get a fair bit of gear in the mail this week. I got a new Centerflex hinge delivered for that screw up, so I can get that door on in there, finish that off, which will be good. I've got these hinges that I talked about earlier. I've painted them black, epoxy coated them, and I'm going to mount those today for the pop top at the back. So hopefully they're going okay. I've got the trims that I mentioned earlier that I got folded up. I've got to get all those on, cut them to length and put them all on. What else have I got to get done? Oh, the fronts of all the hatches need a bit of unequal angle glued in, and that'll finish them off. So they'll be all done. So there's a fair bit to get through for this weekend, but I'm going to dive in and hopefully nail it all. Better get into it. Just been cracking on, haven't been filming much. I've got the front faces of these, I'm underway. I've got one more to put on the top of there. That one's looking good. I've just used some clamps to try and pull that corner in a bit, and hoping that the front face piece glued in with terracin will hold it across a bit, which means that won't catch. It's got a little bit of a catch there, which I'm hoping a mil or so I've gained there will fix that. So yeah, I just got to chuck that one on, then I'll be done. I've done the other two around here. That one looking good. And anywhere where I've sort of seen a bit of a funny engagement between the corners, I've just clamped it up and hoping that the glue on that face will hold it in its correct shape. That one's done. I haven't done that one. I'm thinking I'll bite the bullet and pull that door off, start again, and try and build a door that fits that out of square frame, as I'd mentioned earlier. So yeah, by doing this, I've ended up with limited access to the areas to do further work in. So I think next I'll do this wall in here, which will be the front face of a seat, access point for where you lift up and access the fridge, but also a bench. Get that all started and get framed out. I want that in there when I take it for rego, so the weight factor is counted for. The ensuite door's turned up, as you can see. It looks pretty cool, so that's another job I can do. I'm not sure to work around it and try not to break it, which I do quite often. Anyway, so it's looking good, making some progress. Need to crack back into it. Decided to chuck the ensuite door in first. It was much simpler because it's got these bits of extrusion on the edge here that the door actually moves inside of. So I was able to, instead of trying to put them on at an angle and get a screw in and everything, I was able to just lift the whole door out, the whole door frame out with no roof on the van, fit the 2 side pieces and then slide it back in. So that worked pretty well. Next thing is where this fits inside this extrusion. I need to put some pop rivets down the side there to make it solid, which I'll do now, and then I'll show you how it opens, because if I try and open it now, the top tries to move in because it's not fixed. So I'll get on to putting those pop rivets in, and then it'll be job done. But get onto it. Looks pretty good. So it's got a magnet on that edge there, and that one there. It just grabs it. I've got caps to put on here, which I'll chuck on now. I've got to pick up a bit of trim that goes along the top there. I haven't got it, but I've got to chuck that on as well. And she's looking good. Just got that in off camera. Not enough room in there to film, and it wasn't very exciting anyway, so it's just a bit of unequal angle all the way around, framed. Couple of bits of it actually on the top to create a bit of strength there. It's 12mm core light, which is that's 18mm. I just used 12 here. I didn't have much room to play with, and it's what I had left, so I used it. And now I'm just going to get a bit of timber laminated bench top material from Bunnings that's going to look a bit decorative, and then make that hinged so I can lift that up and access the fridge and the diesel heater in there. But won't show any more of that this episode. I think that'll be for later on. But yeah, that turned out okay. Need to get some flooring in there. Got to move on to the roof, but in the meantime, I also did the spare wheel mounts. They look pretty cool. Just painted them. You probably can't see in there, but I just sprayed them with some epoxy and then some top coat enamel to make them look a bit neater. And yeah, solid as a rock. Really happy with them. I've got to make some decisions around whether I want all that weight on the back yet. Ball weight's pretty close to where I need it, but I'm still haven't finished the build, obviously, and I'll just see where it all ends up. I might end up with just one spare on the back for most of the trips I do, and then two when I need it for bigger trips, more remote trips, and when I can play with the storage areas and where the weight distribution is going to be. I need to get on to putting the hinges up here. That's the next job. They turned out well, so you can see the ones down there going through the 50mm bit of plate. They go through the whole wall, so they go through the whole fiberglass wall. There's a bit of PVC insert in that fiberglass all the way through 50mm wide as well, so essentially that whole top edge is pretty strong, and they pull in through and squeeze up against that PVC from the outside. And you can see the ones in the pop-top surround up there. So this is the top section of the pop-top, which will lift like that when you open it, and it worked out pretty well. So I got longer bolts in the bottom and shorter ones in the top. It only just cleared here, but only just is good enough for me, which I was factoring in all of this design and I wasn't quite sure, but it did work out okay. This is in from behind, so that goes through the top of the profile with the short bolts, and then that goes through the wall with the long bolts. I think that worked out okay. I'm not going to put the roof sheet in straight away. I'll probably see that in the next episode, but that's basically an off-cut of the roof, all the walls, but the same stuff. They'll sit in there like that. I actually made them too small, miscalc on my measurements of how big this profile is going to be compared to the opening I needed, and I've made them a little bit short. So I went and put this 100mm piece in all the way around and glued it off to the frame, so it's got a wider shelf now to sit on, and that'll allow me to put 3 rows or 2 rows of terracing on there. So when the roof sheet drops on and glues off, it'll be really strong. And then you may not be able to see it in there, but there's a groove down in there that you put a piece of angle in, and the angle comes up and over the top. So the angle will be glued to here, and it'll go down there and it'll glue into there as well, which hopefully it's enough sealant. Once it's all set and glued, I'll probably then come back and run a bead along that edge as well. There's a bit of a lip there to stop water coming up and over. It's like a channel that runs along there, so when the roof's flat, hopefully it'll have enough ability to expel water, but definitely when it's up, it'll just run straight off, which is good. Well, the roof's hinged and pretty solid from what I can tell, but I need to get that roof sheet in. Unfortunately, we've run out of time again, so we're not going to get to it today in this episode, but it'll definitely be in the next one. Also got to put the LED lights on, a few other bits and bobs around the place to get finished, obviously, and then I'll be taking it for registration. That could actually be in the next episode, so it'll be rolling down the road, which will be pretty exciting. Hopefully it doesn't fall apart. Anyway, if you want to follow me on Insta, I've also got an Insta account, perpetual.transient. If you can like and subscribe on YouTube as well, write some comments, all that sort of stuff helps the channel out. So really appreciate it. But anyway, I'll catch you on the rerun. Cheers. Bye.